And I'd like to thank my friend Roz for coming with me to keep me out of trouble, because last time I ate a cookie in Nimbin I got into quite a lot of trouble. I couldn't walk for a long time and I had to sleep it off. So we're just a little intimate gathering here, so I won't take very long, but people ask me why would I write this book, and I was off work back in 1998. I had an occupational injury, too much computer work, and I was off work for a couple of years with nothing to do. And they say the devil finds work for idle hands. I thought, what shall I do? And what am I going to do about this injury? And someone said, well, you know, try cannabis. It's good for pain relief. You know, maybe it'll sort out your aches and pains. So I don't smoke. So I thought, well, I better try eating it, and happened to know a lot of the old hippies from up Maynarm Valley, which is a cannabis growing capital. So I asked them for how do you cook with cannabis, and I got the real oil from the experts up there, and it took me quite a lot of time to research it, because when you have a cookie, it kind of takes up the whole day. And so I'd start my work at 10 o'clock in the morning and I'd still be kind of restfully snoozing at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd have to wake up and cook dinner. Anyway, so I came up with the idea of the book, and just for a bit of fun really, and a bit of an up yours to the establishment. And my dear friend Mungo MacCallum was very encouraging and offered to write a little fun piece. So we lost Mungo last December, sadly. So I just wrote the book, did a lot of research. People were really helpful. And so, yes, eating cannabis is a good way to ingest it. Just listening to a speaker in the hall talking about whole plant medicine. And I think by the time you've cooked your cannabis leaf in butter for, you know, 4, 6, 8 hours, I think you probably are getting a lot of the whole plant ingredients into your can of butter, and that's the whole secret of cooking, to be able to make the butter or the oil, and then you use that in just about any recipe. So I've put a selection of recipes in here just for amusement, but I think, you know, the chocolate brownies, ginger cookies, sweet biscuits of any sort are the way to go. Let's face it, it's kind of a weedy flavour, so good bit of chocolate or ginger disguises that nicely. And yeah, so and I found that cannabis has actually been around for about 10,000 years of human history. It's been used for, you know, not just for getting high, or for medicine, but very important for rope and fibre. So King Henry VIII wanted people growing cannabis. If they didn't, they could be fined 3 shillings and 4 pence for failing to produce enough hemp to make ropes for the Navy. So a very, very useful plant. Now the history of, I've gone into the history of how it came to be outlawed, which is really after the end of Prohibition in the US. You had a whole police force with nothing to do because alcohol became legal, so they decided it was useful to ban hemp. They called it marijuana, so it would be associated more with like Mexican immigrants who were still undesirable in the eyes of some people in the United States. It was a really good way of repressing a whole class of people, particularly immigrants, poor people, black people, and that's why they're so keen to keep it outlawed, although even in America they are starting to legalise it in a lot of places. In Australia is the holdout. So yeah, it's really good for cops. It gives them a job, lots of money, They get helicopters and black Land Rovers to rush around looking for hemp. So I think that's, you know, a strong factor why it's still outlawed. And as for the effects of cannabis, well, we all know about highs, but it is quite different if you eat it. It takes an hour or two to kick in. It can be a whole lot more trippy. Yeah, look, that cookie I ate one Mardigrass years ago, I actually saw bugs on the ceiling and things for quite a few hours. So you've got to be mindful of how much you have, and I've tried to, and with these recipes, not to put too much of the butter or oil in, but you never know how strong it's going to be. It depends how your plant was originally, how long you cooked it for, how much of a proportion of the ingredient goes into your cookies. So, you know, if you've got something that has a big proportion of butter, it's going to be much stronger than if it only has a little bit of butter. So the only way to find out is to eat it and wait and see.
I'm wondering about the butter and baking. I read the recipe last night, about 4 hours cooking or something. But I've also been learning from other places that cooking destroys nutrients, and we'll do the similar, the heat overheating for when we do the same with THC or some other ingredient.
Well, it definitely works, I can assure you. But yes, you want your heat to be gentle, so the invention of the crock pot has been really helpful to cannabis cooks. That is the ideal thing. You can, I put it on and just leave it overnight on low heat.
Are you using dairy butter, coconut oil any good? Use that?
Coconut oil would be fine. I haven't tried it, but I would say it would be good. I use dairy butter, and of course olive oil is great. Olive oil is excellent, so we've got a section in here on how to make cannabis oil without blowing up your house, because a lot of people use solvents. There's a method in here which is just very gentle heating. So you certainly don't want really high heat, but I can assure you the longer you cook it, the stronger it is.
Is this called hash oil again?
No. Yeah, it's the hash oil where people use solvents to extract it. Alcohol is quite good, but I tried, I haven't really put alcohol in the book. I did try steeping it in whiskey and drinking that. I got a really nasty headache and I felt horrible, so I don't really recommend that.
Any other alcohol?
Well, all alcohol's much the same. People use vodka, but you get a very strong weedy taste, and I must say it was pretty foul, and I didn't, because you're also getting drunk as well as high, and the combination personally I found was not particularly an experience I wanted to repeat.
I have to comment. The nicest liqueur I ever had was actually in Nimbin, and someone made an elderberry liqueur.
Well, that sounds nice.
Oh, I couldn't believe how elderberry is good.
There's a kumquat thing with some added sugar and some added water and brandy, 50 or something like that. That definitely works.
Yeah, I'd say it would go well with kumquats. And you know, the sweetness, I think sweetness really enhances the experience. It's definitely something that goes with sugar.
It's still higher alcohol and will start to ruin it.
Yeah.
I've got a question. Does eating it give you the munchies?
Does eating it give you the munchies? Yes.
Which means you're going to then eat more.
Yes, indeed. You know, 3 or 4 hours after eating your chocolate cookie, you're starving. You're into the fridge looking for stuff, yeah, but probably better not to have too many more cookies.
Oh no, it's possible to leave a tray of cakes there, then depredate one piece at a time for a month.
As long as it's not chocolate. If it's chocolate, I can't not eat it. That's my problem.
Yeah, I find, I want more chocolate when I've got the munchies, or I want things like chippies, crispies and salty. Yeah, so generally unhealthy things. Yeah.
It's all the sugar crack. It's all sugar addiction.
Yeah.
So we got used to a higher dynamic through white rice, through white flour, than with the fibres from the more organic stuff, which slowed down the uptake of sugars in the body. So we re-metabolizing ourselves, maybe to cure those sugars ourselves.
Yeah. And over the years since I wrote the book, I think the people who ask me for it most, who want to get hold of the book, are actually people who either themselves or one of their loved ones is under treatment for something like cancer, maybe having chemotherapy and getting a lot of illness, loss of appetite. And I've seen people get real benefits out of just cannabis cookies. They can make it at home. And that's where I think the benefit is. One of the reasons I decided to do, reprint the book after all these years. So that this is something people can do for themselves at home. And yeah, I've seen elderly people who probably never thought through their earlier days of using cannabis start growing their own and taking a great interest in cooking.
I've got any, I've got a seed, so I want to get it up and juicing on the great thing. This is a whole story in itself.
Yeah.
Is that in the book also, or is that's a different world?
That's a different world, yeah. I didn't go into how to grow it at all because there are many, many really good books, and I tell you what, I'm a lousy gardener. Things come to my garden to die, so I couldn't really offer good advice on growing. Good to see you. Well, I think we might be about done, ladies.
Another question, do you decarboxylate before you cook with it?
Decarboxylate?
Decarboxylate, yeah. I just discovered decarboxylation is where you kind of pre-cook it and it's supposed to release or activate the organic content.
Oh yeah, there is a little reference to that in the section on how to make oil without blowing up your house. The guy says that tests show that you don't need to decarboxylate. You get good results just from without that. So
that's what I would have thought. Once you cook it, that's the same. The decarboxylation involves heating it to actually quite a lowish temperature. I think you do it at about 110. But if you're cooking it anyway in your cookies, surely that has the same impact.
Yeah, I would think so. But
Yes, it would.
yeah.
I once saw a lovely video of an elderly couple in America, and the way she did hers was, I think she had boiling water, because that's apparently at a good temperature, and she put her butter in there, stick of butter and the cannabis, and just boiled it, and obviously it's not friendly to water, so it went into the butter.
Yep, that method is in the book. I've got about I've got 2 methods of making butter in here, and about 2 or 3 methods of making oil, as well as flour. So yeah, that method is in here. Yeah. So here we are. Oh, I see. Somebody was making a comment.
Yes, she did.
Oh, that's something to be aware of.
Doggy treats.
When you've made your canna butter or oil, okay, you've got the leaf material left over, and it's all nice and buttery or oily. That is very appealing to dogs. And one day I got home from work, and I had a cottage on the property I'd leased to some students, and I'd given them the book, and they had a cook-up. When I got home from work, one of my dogs was falling over, looking in like, really bad shape. I was in a panic, couldn't get her to the vet fast enough. And he had a look at her and he said, there's no chance this dog could have ingested cannabis material, he said. And I thought, I bet the boys have had a cook-up and chucked the leaves on the compost heap and Ruby's found it. So I admitted to the vet and I said I wasn't sure, but yeah, maybe it's possible. So he actually made her throw up. He gave her some emetic, and she threw up. Sure enough, she threw up. It was cannabis leaf. So then I kind of mentioned the book. I mentioned the book, and the vet was really interested. He said, "I think my wife would love a copy of your book." So when I went back, I left the dog with him overnight just to make sure she was all right. Went back the next morning to pick her up, gave him the book, and he said, "How much do you sell this for?" I said, $15. So he said, "Oh, I'll make sure we take $15 off the bill."
Oh, that's nice.
They do trade.
So yeah, if you're having a cook up, like burn the leaf or something, don't chuck it on the compost, especially if you've got dogs. And I think that's about it for today.
Thank you very much. You've been very interesting. You present lovely too.
Thank you.
Very interesting to listen to.
I didn't write a speech or do any prep or this week.
That's all right. No, that was fabulous.
And the embassy
It's very exciting to hear about a reprinted cannabis cookbook, because an old faithful.
So the Australian Cannabis Cookbook for those who are
thank
watching.
you so much, Eve, for coming to Mardigrass, the 29th Mardigrass 2021. Woo!
I must thank the Hemp Embassy for helping me with I couldn't afford to do the print run, so they financed it, and they've got a third of the books, and so go to the Hemp Embassy please and buy the book. Thanks.